IELTS Listening, version 57474. You will hear a number of different recordings, and you will have to answer questions on what you hear. There will be time for you to read the instructions and questions, and you will have a chance to check your work. All the recordings will be played once only. The test is in 4 sections. Write all your answers in the listening question booklet. At the end of the test, you will be given 10 minutes to transfer your answers to an answer sheet. Now turn to Section 1 on page 2 of your question booklet. Section 1. You will hear a telephone conversation between a sales representative and a customer about hiring a camper van. First, you have some time to look at questions 1 to 5 on page 2. You will see that there is an example that has been done for you. On this occasion only, the conversation relating to this will be played first.
Hello, Oz Campervans, Barry here.
Oh, hello. We're planning a trip to Tasmania this summer, and rather than stay in hotels or motels, we thought it would be nice to have our own van that we could sleep in, so I need to hire a camper van.
Okay. Well, if you tell me what your needs are, I can prepare a quote for you.
Okay, great.
Now, I'll need some contact details. Your name is...
Caroline Smith.
The customer's name is Caroline Smith, so Smith has been written in the space. Now we shall begin. You should answer the questions as you listen because you will not hear the recording a second time. Listen carefully and answer questions 1 to 5.
Hello, Oz Campervans, Barry here.
Oh, hello. We're planning a trip to Tasmania this summer, and rather than stay in hotels or motels, we thought it would be nice to have our own van that we could sleep in, so I need to hire a camper van.
Okay. Well, if you tell me what your needs are, I can prepare a quote for you.
Okay, great.
Now, I'll need some contact details. Your name is...
Caroline Smith.
Thank you. And what's your address?
14 Grey Street, Forest Hill.
Oh, I know it. And if I can just get a contact telephone number?
I'll give you my mobile number. It's 0491 570 156.
And do you have an email address?
Yeah, it's caroline@easymail.com.
Great. We can email a copy of the quote to you.
Actually, I'd prefer to get it in the post because my computer's playing up at the moment.
Got it. Okay then, Caroline. What kind of camper van are you interested in?
Well, I don't know very much about them.
Okay. Can you tell me how many people there are in your group?
Well, there's my husband, our daughter, and me, of course. That's all.
Well, we have a model called the Explorer which would suit you.
I'll choose that one then.
Now, it's really for 2 people, but we can supply you with an additional bed. The roof pops up and it fits in there.
Yes, we'll be needing one of those then.
Okay, I'll put that down on the quote as well.
How much is that one, by the way? I've budgeted for $50 a day.
Well, the daily rate on that one is only $39, so you'll save $11 a day.
I see. Well, that's not too bad. Does that price include petrol too?
No, but it does include blankets, pillows and sheets, as well as all the things you need in the kitchen.
Oh, good.
Before you hear the rest of the conversation, you have some time to look at questions 6 to 10 on page 2. Now listen and answer questions 6 to 10.
We do offer some additional optional extras. Would you like to hear about them?
Sure, since we're saving a bit of money.
Well, for a small additional fee, we can provide a heater, a TV, a microwave, or a coffee maker.
We'll definitely need a heater.
Yes, it can get pretty cold in Tasmania.
I know. I want to get away from it all, so no TV. But the microwave would be useful.
Anything else?
None of us drink coffee, so I think that's all.
Now, you said that you were going to Tasmania.
That's right. We want to fly to Hobart from Brisbane, pick up the van, and then drive from there to Huonville.
Right. Now, we have 2 branches in Hobart. Do you want to pick up your van from the city centre branch or get it from the one at the airport when you land?
Oh, the airport one. We don't want to have to go into the city centre. We want to start travelling immediately.
Okay, I'll put that down. Now, how long do you need the van for?
About 2 weeks. Is that okay?
Yep, that should be fine.
Oh, good. Well, thanks very much for all your help.
No problem. Oh, can I just run through a few more details with you? It's just related to our insurance.
Oh, yeah, sure.
Now, are you and your husband both planning on driving the van?
Yes. Yes, we are. Is that a problem?
No, it's no problem. I just need the age of the youngest driver. That's an insurance requirement.
My daughter's 19 and she's keen to drive.
Oh, well, unfortunately she won't be able to drive the van as you need to be at least 25 years of age.
Oh, I see. Well, put my age down then. I'm 49.
Sure. Just one more question. It's another insurance requirement. Do you and your husband both have Australian driver's licenses? It costs a little extra if you have an overseas one.
Well, my husband is originally from America, but yes, we both got our licenses here in Australia.
Great. Well, that's all I need from you. So I'll get that quote out to you in the post.
That is the end of Section 1. You now have half a minute to check your answers. Now turn to Section 2 on page 3. Section 2. You will hear an instructor at a sports center talking to visitors at an open day. First, you have some time to look at questions 11 to 16 on page 3. Now listen carefully and answer questions 11 to 16.
Good morning. We're delighted to see so many local residents here today at the open day at Bexter Sports Centre. We're looking forward to showing you round, and if there's anything I haven't covered, just get hold of me when we have a break in the cafe at 11 o'clock. At the moment, we're also celebrating the completion of a purpose-built dance studio, where you'll see a lesson in progress. You'll also see the Kids Club class in the swimming pool and get the chance to talk to some of our instructors. We have a range of sports facilities, so there's something for everybody. I've already mentioned the Kids Club. That's Saturdays and Sundays only, and children must be accompanied by a responsible adult. Weekday evenings, we have the highest throughput, as a lot of people come straight from work for an hour or two. And of course, the students at the local college tend to pop in any time Monday to Friday, whenever they've got a gap between lectures. We organise a wide range of classes, from yoga to boxing, and classes are best booked for a term. That's 10 classes. You can pay by debit card, and we give you vouchers which you just hand in to the instructor. We do accept credit card payments, but I'm afraid we have to charge a fee for that. Or, if you prefer, you can turn up and pay cash on the day, but you'll find you save money when you book for a term up front. All the information about our classes is on our website. There are profiles of our instructors too, and you'll see we've recently won a sports award for the standard of the work they do. The guidance they give was highlighted in the award ceremony. If you like what you see here today, you can join now for a membership fee of £20 a month. To tempt you further, if you're a football fan, we've got 30 tickets for the Cup final, and you'd be welcome to come along. The coach is free, so it's just the cost of the ticket. But best of all, just today, we're able to offer to people who join completely free an hour with a personal trainer. And finally, a word of warning. A lot of people who join gyms or sports centres give up after a couple of months. At first, they clearly feel better, look better, etc. But then the motivation wears off. They start making excuses like they're too busy at work. But it's usually because they joined on their own, so outside the club there's no one to compare notes with. Don't let that happen to you.
Before you hear the rest of the talk, you have some time to look at questions 17 to 20 on page 4. Now listen and answer questions 17 to 20.
Now, to get the most out of sports activities, make sure you do a range of activities. Generally speaking, it's a good idea to start with the general training classes, where you'll start by working on strengthening your lower limbs. You'll immediately feel the benefits in your day-to-day life. Then, make sure you're building up your strength. Do some light weight training. You'll be surprised how much that increases your ability to stay mentally focused, and that's outside the gym too. Make sure you do our aerobics class. This will give you a really intensive workout and really get your heart pumping. It's the perfect way to release all the tension that's built up during the day. Finally, at least once a week, play a sport such as squash so that your agility improves. This is very good for developing quick responses. You literally think on your feet. It's recommended that you follow this program for about 6 weeks and then reassess your fitness levels.
That is the end of section 2. You now have half a minute to check your answers. Now turn to section 3 on page 5. Section 3. You will hear 2 researchers comparing their research on different types of bees. First, you have some time to look at questions 21 to 25 on page 5. Now listen carefully and answer questions 21 to 25.
Have you had a chance to look at our research on Australian native bees?
Yes, it's very relevant to my research on European bees.
What aspect do you think is most relevant?
Well, as you know, my main research interest is the European honeybee and the problems facing it.
Yes, I've heard about the varroa mite, but I don't know much about it.
Well, it almost wiped out the European honeybee population in North America back in the 1980s.
Thankfully, we don't have it here in Australia yet. It sounds like a nasty little creature.
It certainly is. It's like a little hitchhiker, really. It hops onto a bee, then when the bee lands on a flower, the mite gets off and waits for another bee to come along.
And from there, I guess the mite climbs onto another bee.
Right. The mite then hitches a ride back to the hive where the bee lives with the rest of the colony.
So the mite actually sneaks inside the hive on top of the bee's back.
That's right. And once it's there, it dives into a honeycomb cell and heads straight for the bottom. That's where the queen bee's eggs are.
And the honey.
Yes, and the mite buries itself deep inside it.
Ah, I see. The mite doesn't eat the honey though, does it?
Well, no, that's the interesting part. It uses the honey to cover its scent, so it won't be detected.
And presumably it lives off the blood of the bees.
That's right. It feeds on the bee larva that hatches out from the egg. The mite's reproductive cycle takes place there too while it's living in the cell. When that's finished, it leaves.
It sounds like a clever enemy. But why does it have such a devastating effect on bee populations?
Well, it leaves them debilitated, and it also infects them with a virus that spreads amongst the colony.
If the population dies out here in Australia, it will have a devastating effect on Australian agriculture. The worrying thing is that we do need to find a way of increasing our bee population.
Before you hear the rest of the discussion, you have some time to look at questions 26 to 30 on page 6. Now listen and answer questions 26 to 30.
Well, perhaps we can combine my research on European bees and yours on Australian native bees to put together a research proposal and find a way of safely increasing the Australian bee population.
That would be great. Let's compare notes.
OK then, let's start with the European bumblebee. There's been a lot of talk recently about bringing them into this country.
Yes, but the problem is that the bumblebee has a tendency to carry weeds to nearby farmland.
They would also compete for nectar with your existing bees.
You know, there's an Australian native bee, the blue-banded bee, which is good at pollinating without carrying weeds. It could be useful to farmers.
The blue-banded bee? I've never heard of that one.
That's one of the challenges we face because there hasn't been a lot of research on it as yet.
Well, it's better to use native bees because importing them can be disastrous. The Africanised bee is a case in point. It was introduced into South America because it was a good honey producer, but what they didn't realise was that it attacks anything that moves.
Speaking of honey producers, the Australian stingless bee is a good alternative source of honey.
Oh, I didn't know they produced honey.
Yes, although they don't produce as much as other bees do. The main drawback with the stingless bees is that they're quite sensitive to temperature. They just won't fly if it gets below 18 degrees, so they aren't really suited to southern parts of Australia.
I know how you feel about foreign bees, but I think my favourite bee is a Canadian leafcutter bee. It has such a gentle personality, but it's really hard working too, and it's got a lot of potential for farmers.
Why's that?
Well, I've been asked to help import them to this country to pollinate the lucerne or alfalfa crops. At the moment, Australian production is about a third of that in North America, where they have these leafcutter bees.
That's quite a difference. But is it safe to import these bees?
Well, our research shows that it is, so they've been importing them in very limited numbers. They have to be thoroughly checked first before they're released to make sure that they don't have any mites or diseases.
Well, that's good.
Yes. Of course, The only drawback is that we can't bring in very many at a time, so we still don't have enough of them here to really make much difference to our crop yields.
Yes, it takes time to build up a bee population.
That is the end of Section 3. You now have half a minute to check your answers. Now turn to Section 4 on page 7. Section 4. You will hear a lecturer talking to environmental science students about building methods using natural materials. First, you have some time to look at questions 31 to 40 on page 7. Now listen carefully and answer questions 31 to 40.
There is growing interest in building structures using natural materials these days. I'll begin this lecture by looking at how some of these materials work, some advantages and problems associated with each. However, I must start by saying that all these materials and construction techniques require first and foremost a solid foundation, which will most often need to be made of concrete. Thus, the goal of using 100% natural materials may have to be slightly compromised. One type of natural building material is what is known as rammed earth. Rammed earth is a construction method whereby a framework constructed of wood is set in place to act as temporary walls, and then damp earth or soil is placed within this framework. As it is added, the earth is packed down and subjected to intense compression, either by hand or by using specialized machinery. Across parts of Africa today, you can see military fortifications built in this way over 1,000 years ago, still standing in remarkably good condition. The most appropriate type of soil for this construction method is one with a high concentration of sand in it, though other kinds of soil are sometimes successfully used. Rammed earth buildings are well suited to dry, arid climates. Another form of natural construction is called the adobe method, or sometimes the mud brick method. This utilizes bricks which can be made from a variety of soils, but are most suitable when made from a soil rich in clay. The bricks have got to be carefully made to prevent them from cracking. The main advantage of this adobe brick method is that the materials are cheap, and also that it's convenient for people in many geographical areas. Thus, adobe buildings have been traditional forms of construction in many societies, and today can be found all over the world. The construction method is also popular because making the bricks requires minimal training. However, the adobe method does have its drawbacks. For proper preparation of the bricks, large quantities of water are required. And because these bricks are manufactured by hand, the process demands significant investment of time, as well as labor, which can be backbreaking and exhausting. A natural building material which has been popularized in the U.S. is the use of straw bales to create walls. Straw is, of course, dried stalks of plants, especially tall grasses. The straw is shaped into large rectangular blocks called bales, tightly bound together, and these are excellent for use in the building of walls. When building with straw bales, the first thing that needs to be done is to construct a roof supported by poles so that work can continue even if it rains. Then the straw bales are stacked up to form walls. The bales are then coated with a layer of plaster, which seals and protects them and keeps the insects out of them. The most common reason for their use in building today is the fact that they provide a very effective means of insulation for the building. Another great building material is bamboo. This highly versatile plant is one of the fastest growing plants in the world. One of its primary advantages is due to the hollow, round, and segmented shape of its individual stalks, which give it its strength. And because of its light weight, it is easy to handle. A significant drawback, however, is that the large varieties of bamboo which are best suited for construction grow only in tropical and subtropical regions of the world. And also because it catches fire easily, bamboo can be problematic and potentially dangerous. Now let's take a look at possible sources of...
That is the end of Section 4. You now have half a minute to check your answers. That is the end of the listening test. You now have 10 minutes to transfer your answers to the listening answer sheet.